I'm Liz Faublas, and this is Currents. A hot night in Hempstead, the candidates debate, and it was feisty. The faithful in politics, looking at Catholic participation and asking the question, is the church's message resonating here? And the miracle that saved a boy and made a saint. We'll hear from the youngster tonight. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. 2 down, 1 to go. The second presidential debate last night at Hofstra University was a lively session with several energetic exchanges. Here's a sample.
Governor Romney says he's got a 5-point plan. Governor Romney doesn't have a 5-point plan. He has a 1-point plan.
Why am I lowering taxes on the middle class? Because under the last 4 years, they've been buried. Mr. President, have you looked at your pension? Have you looked at your pension?
You know, I don't look at my pension. It's not as big as yours, so it doesn't take as long.
When you say that I wanted to take the auto industry bankrupt, you actually did.
There are differences between Governor Romney and George Bush, but they're not on economic policy. In some ways, he's gone to a more extreme place when it comes to social policy.
On the day following the assassination of a United States ambassador, the first time that's happened since 1979, when we have 4 Americans killed there, when apparently we didn't know what happened, that the president, the day after that happened, flies to Las Vegas for a political fundraiser.
And the suggestion that anybody in my team, whether the Secretary of State, our UN ambassador, anybody on my team would play politics or mislead when we've lost 4 of our own, Governor, is offensive.
And the final debate will be Monday night in Florida. The focus will be foreign policy. Meantime, the candidates will be back in New York tomorrow at the invitation of Cardinal Dolan to attend the annual Al Smith charity dinner at the Waldorf. The Cardinal himself will soon be traveling to war-torn Syria. Pope Benedict is sending Dolan and other church leaders to Damascus. The head of Catholic Relief Services, Bishop Gerald Kikanis, tells us more about the purpose of the mission.
All of us are deeply concerned about the situation in Syria because the violence continues to escalate and there doesn't seem to be any resolution in sight. And of course, it's something also that is worrisome in the whole region because Syria is a very significant presence in the Middle East. And so I think it's amazingly important that our Holy Father, Benedict, has decided that here at the Synod there would be a delegation that would go from the Synod to be present in solidarity with the people in Syria as a demonstration of the concern of the Church for peace. The Conference of Bishops in the U.S. just recently had a delegation that visited in Syria. The purpose of such delegations, and certainly the one coming from the Synod as well, is to look, to listen, to try to see and understand better what is going on and how the Church can be helpful. But it's also a way of saying to people that we are concerned, that we are here in solidarity with you. While we can't take away the suffering and the struggle that you're experiencing, we want you to know that we're here with you and that we hope to make known to the international community what the situation is and that the international community must step up and address this very serious situation that is happening.
Cardinal Dolan and his colleagues are expected to leave for Syria next week. The Archbishop of Syria, meantime, has addressed the Synod, warning his brother bishops of difficulties in reaching out to Muslims. Archbishop Joseph Absi says misunderstandings between Christians and Muslims arise because Muslims do not see a difference between what is religious and what is political. Therefore, he says when Muslims see the decline in Western culture, they blame Christians. The Pope is taking new steps to enhance the celebration of the Year of Faith, which is now underway. He's introducing a series of catechesis, the act of handing on the Word of God. The Holy Father says the new catechesis will deal with the central truths of our faith.
The Year of Faith invites us to renewed enthusiasm for the gift of our belief in Jesus Christ. The Son of God shows us the ultimate meaning of our human existence.
And the Pope also saying only through faith will we be able to build a truly humane and fraternal society. The latest news about the inhumane attack on Malala Yousafzai is good. Reports say her condition has stabilized. The Pakistani teenager is in a British hospital after being gunned down by Taliban terrorists intent on killing the girl simply because she wants all girls to be able to attend school in Pakistan. Malala was shot while riding a school bus. 2 other students were also wounded. In this CNN report from the scene of the attack, Ressa Seya speaks with one of the wounded children.
The city of Mingora in Pakistan's scenic Swat Valley. This is the region the Taliban took over in 2008, forcing shut, then blowing up girls' schools, threatening to kill anyone who stood in their way. This is also where Malala Yousafzai and her classmate Kainat Ahmed defied the Taliban by going to school anyway. Kainat was seated next to Malala when Taliban gunmen stopped their school van and opened fire. One of the bullets hit Kainat in the arm. In her hospital room, a mob of reporters shoved their way through for a glimpse of Kainat's 10-minute visit with Pakistan's interior minister.
Do you regret standing up against the Taliban now that you've been hurt?
No, sir, I don't regret it. God willing, I will continue my education.
What do you want the world to know?
Girls' education here is more important than boys, because boys can have any jobs they want here, but girls cannot. I want to tell all the girls to continue their mission to get an education.
All right, we have left Kainat in the hospital. We're heading to Malala's school, and we are really racing at high speeds in an armed convoy. And it shows you, even though the government says they've cleared the Taliban out of this region, there's still a lot of safety concerns. We've arrived at Malala's school. This is where Kainat went to school as well. So did Shazia, the other schoolgirl who was hurt. When the Taliban took over this region, this was one of the few girls' schools that remained open. The headmaster was Malala's father. He essentially said, no, we're staying open. Much of what Malala learned was in classrooms here. Despite the attack on students here, the school opened 3 days after the shooting.
How can you take practical steps to make sure these little girls are
We are taking
safe?
practical steps. We have to change the mindset. It's a mindset we need to change. And the first practical step is to take action against these Zalman, these terrorists.
Malala's picture is everywhere here. Here's Malala with a couple of politicians. Here's Malala standing next to the Prime Minister, and this is the principal's office, who was also Malala's father, Ziauddin Yousafzai. Today it's sitting empty because he is in England with his daughter, facing the unimaginable ordeal of knowing his daughter is fighting for her life.
And the Taliban thugs that want Malala dead are not giving up. Now they're trying to tarnish her reputation, taking to postings on internet social networks. And they've come up with a new excuse for trying to assassinate her. She's a spy who divulged secrets. Up next, the Pope says Europe can be saved, and more news as Currents continues. Welcome back. The Pope says Europe can be saved. The Holy Father believes Europeans will rediscover their Christian heritage because God is profoundly inscribed into each human heart and cannot disappear. At the Synod, a leading cardinal says saving Europe will require the work of everyone.
What's the best way to recover Europe's Christian roots? During the Synod of Bishops, Cardinal Peter Erdo said one of the answers is having all Christians evangelize, not just experts or the clergy. He says that's how the first Christians managed to communicate their message.
What you have to do is follow the Acts of the Apostles, specifically its reference to the first community of Jerusalem. So common prayer and common Eucharist. That's the source of all strength, especially for evangelization.
His proposal is to visit and talk to every Catholic family. For that to happen, it's necessary to prepare lay people so they in turn can help bishops and parish priests. In Hungary, which is his native country, families are being taught and in some cases retaught how to live the faith in their home.
Unfortunately, nowadays one is used to buying the Christmas tree and then not really knowing what to do and how to celebrate. This is also seen in Catholic families, and it's something that's very sad. We have to help families understand how to celebrate, how to enjoy the mysteries of our faith in the home and in the family environment.
Getting the message out to the youth is key, but seniors, he says, are just as important, especially in Europe where the older generation is quite large.
Here on this continent, there are many who are already retired, but who can still work very well, especially in the community, civil society, and in the church as volunteers. That's especially true for those between the ages of 65 and 75. For example, in Budapest, there are Caritas groups in every parish run mostly by retired seniors.
Ultimately, the goal is for families to evangelize to other families while having bishops and parishes as a pillar of support. Above all, he says the best way to evangelize is not only through words, but most importantly, through actions.
And the president of the Pontifical Council for the Family warns that without strong traditional families, the stability of society itself will be at risk. Archbishop Vincenzo Paglia, speaking to the Synod, says it is urgent, very urgent, for the family to take center stage in cultural, political, and economic matters. Well, the church living in a familial way is perhaps the biggest topic at the Synod, and one Synod father, the Archbishop of Manila, credits the Holy Father with making the family central to the new evangelization.
This is not the first time that the Pope Ratzinger has stressed the fact of the hermeneutic of continuity. Even as a theologian, as a professor, his view of Vatican II was that of a council in great continuity with the tradition, especially when he sees how the other type of interpretation, which is rupture, a discontinuity, has brought some effects on the faith life of the community. He seems to be saying, look, this is not just hermeneutics. Look at the effects. What has happened to the church? What has happened to parishes? What has happened to churches that have espoused this worldview of, or this vision of Vatican II as a total break from the rest of the history? And I think it's not just theological, it's not just hermeneutical, it is also pastoral for him. So the Year of Faith is not just to clarify and purify our faith, it's from within, but it is also a drive to share the faith, outside of our confines.
Currents will continue after the break. Next, the church's message in a blue state. Is it being heard? Welcome back. As we've been reporting, a lot of news is coming from the Synod of Bishops in Rome. Cardinal Dolan is sharing with the bishops his findings regarding adult converts to Catholicism. He says the three things the converts find most attractive about the church are the sacrament of confession, the Pope, and devotion to Mary. The Cardinal says penance is especially appealing to young people because it is so personal, and he never understood the push to so-called general absolution. He calls that a drive-in car wash. As we reported earlier, the Cardinal will host the presidential candidates tomorrow at the Al Smith Dinner in Manhattan. Last night, New York's Catholic voters had the opportunity to learn more about those issues that deserve careful consideration by the faithful before going to the polls.
There are many issues, and they're all important, but remember that they're not all equal. And I urge you to read exactly what the bishops say about that in the Faithful Citizenship document. 3 weeks from today, Americans will go to the polls and vote in probably one of the more important elections of our lifetime. Tonight, Epiphany Parish is proud to host Mrs. Kathleen Gallagher, who is the Director of Pro-Life Activities for the Archdiocese of New York. Mrs. Gallagher is going to talk about a document that the bishops issued a number of years ago called Faithful Citizenship. Here's what the bishops say. They call us very directly to participate in the political process. They say, in the Catholic tradition, responsible citizenship is a virtue, and participation in political life is a moral obligation.
The social teachings, the way it was broken down, I hadn't really read a lot about it. I'm pretty general in my thinking a lot of times. It was nice to have someone put things out specifically, and that as Catholics we're called to be political and be involved.
It is very, very difficult and very time-consuming to take our faithful citizenship responsibilities seriously. And yet that's what we're called to do. And in doing so, we're called to exercise prudence, say our bishops. The virtue of prudence helps us to discern what is right and what is good. And prudential judgments help us to deliberate over our choices.
I came thinking I would see that what the positions of the church are on us becoming on Catholics becoming politically active, and I did learn a few things that I guess maybe I forgot or that I just wasn't focusing on, but it was informative in that sense, and I enjoyed the discussion afterwards very much.
It is permissible to vote for the lesser of two evils. I have a friend who's a very good Catholic who says, Kathy, I can't vote for the lesser of two evils because then I'd just be voting for evil. And I respect him. I respect that decision. I come to a different conclusion using my own prudential judgment. I prefer to weigh who's going to do more good. Catholic Church is really politically homeless. We don't fit neatly into one political party or the other. And this is the official website of the Catholic Church in New York State. It's nyscatholic.org. We are the New York State Catholic Conference. We are the official voice of the Catholic Church in the Empire State.
Because a lot of people posing as the right website, so it was nice to have someone from the actual Catholic and archdiocese and bishops telling us, go to this website, that's where it's at. Tonight we learned there are a lot of opportunities out there to be heard and be active. And we all do our things. I think there's a lot more we can be doing.
Issues central to the presidential campaign, especially for Catholic women, are examined in a new book that was published yesterday titled Breaking Through: Catholic Women Speak for Themselves. I spoke with one of the authors, Helen Alvari. Helen, you give women quite a voice in your new book about issues that have really been resonating nationally over the past year and, quite frankly, over generations. What are women, quote unquote, saying to you about these really relevant issues these days?
Right. Well, of course, each of the chapters deals with, very specific topics like contraception or same-sex attraction or fear of children or the new dating market for women. But I would say that generally speaking, one of the things that women are saying in particular is that they're drawing on the resources of both their faith and reason. The world is essentially suggesting to them that if they're women of faith, they have no reason, that faith isn't reasonable, and they're showing you sort of in action what Popes John Paul II and Benedict always talk about, which is faith and reason together illuminating their modern problems. They are affirming that they are facing problems that their mothers and grandmothers really didn't have to take a look at. These are very new. And they're saying that they have suggestions not only for the world, who's claiming to have all the answers and telling Catholic women what to think, but they also have suggestions for their church about consulting women on these very new questions.
Which, of course, brings us to probably one of the biggest issues that we're facing these days, which is, of course, the HHS mandate. We talk about it. In one of your blogs, you quote a New York Times poll, and you say, when registered voters were asked in a poll commissioned by the Catholic Association whether the government has the right to mandate morally objectionable medical coverage on religious institutions, 57% said no. Now, with a vast majority of women clearly offended by the implications, the message, the potential effects of the rule, what's the government missing these days?
I know. That is the million-dollar question. There's several answers come to mind. One is we are in the middle of a hot political season, and the Obama administration in particular is banking on getting what they call the women's vote. I don't believe there is such a thing. Women, thank you, are as diverse as we can be, but they have for so long been allied with a very particular wing of sort of the old feminist ideology that says basically that sexual expressionism, without a baby and maybe even without a relationship involved, is the sine qua non of equality. It makes a woman like a man. And I think they've been hanging out for so long with, NARAL and Planned Parenthood and groups like Emily's List, which put in pro-abortion members in the House and Senate. I don't think they actually understand anymore that issues that women are concerned about do not include sex without having a baby in every occasion. That there's actually more to women's freedom than sexual expression with nothing else involved.
And Helen, yet they do try to speak to women. By they, I mean the administration and President Obama, who has said that the HHS mandate and of the surrounding debate, that I don't think your boss, your insurance companies, or politicians should control the care that you get. Now, his suggestion is that allowing exemptions to the mandatory coverage allows employers and others to control women. What do you make of this argument?
Right. He's deliberately conflating several questions. Women have always been and will always be able to, in the modern era, since the 1960s, access contraception or early abortion if they want. And they even can do it in many, many cases on the government's dime. This is something that we speak about morally, and we will continue to. But the question here on the table is whether religious institutions have to facilitate it. Mm-hmm. Do they have to buy the insurance policy to which these things are connected? Mm-hmm. This has nothing to do with controlling what women are going to do in this arena. Obviously, we'll continue to speak morally and about the data on why women ought to choose life, why they ought to choose to keep integrity of body and soul and sexual choices.
We continue with more Currents after the break. The miracle of Blessed Kateri and the boy whose life she saved. Welcome back. A Catholic school in Denver has nearly doubled its student enrollment in just 1 year. The trick? Offering a classical curriculum. The principal of Our Lady of Lourdes Catholic School says this is something people want, and they've wanted it for a long time. The principal says she expects a waiting list for new students by next year. And the wait for a new Archbishop of Indianapolis is over, according to Vatican Insider. They're reporting the Pope has selected Archbishop Joseph Tobin. He currently serves as Secretary of the Congregation for Religious at the Vatican. And on Sunday at the Vatican, Pope Benedict will canonize 7 new Catholic saints. A Washington family traveling there is especially joyful. One of the saints touched them with a miracle, as we hear from reporter John Langler.
Okay, so here we go.
Elsa Fink-Bonner needs more suitcases.
A couple more here.
She needs more time.
Just having to do all this last-minute shopping.
She does not need a miracle.
So I got 6 things done. That was good.
Her greatest miracle has already happened.
Yeah, it was dire.
It was 2006. Her son Jake was 5. One day he fell down playing basketball. Sickness found its way into his face.
He was airlifted to Children's Hospital and he was fighting for his life at that point.
Jake was fighting a flesh-eating bacteria and losing. Then the family pastor suggested prayer in the name of Blessed Kateri Tekakwitha. When she died in the 1600s, it is said her scarred and disfigured face was made beautiful by God. It is said she helped God do the same thing for Jake.
Our journey has come full circle.
That miracle is why next week Blessed Kateri will be canonized in Rome, becoming the first North American Native American saint. Jake will give this to the Pope.
She is truly a gift from God, and I would not be here today if it were not for her intercession.
Elsa has just one more errand to run, picking up her son. Jake is now 12.
Jakey!
He's shy, not too keen on interviews, but he realizes what's about to happen is a big deal.
I'm pretty darn excited to go. I mean, it'll be a trip of a lifetime. And
for the family, it's about time to honor someone in death who brought a young boy back to life.
It'll be a good experience.
It'll be great.
Yes, great indeed. And thank you for joining us tonight. Be sure to be here on Thursday when we look at a rally for the Rosary right here on Currents. Until then, visit us online at currentsny.net. Tonight, we leave you with more images of Blessed Kateri. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Liz Faublas. Thank you for watching and have a good night.